Hi everyone, so I'm going to talk about expat mortgages now. How easy is it to get an expat mortgage and what's the basic process and should you actually get an expat mortgage? So to answer the first question, it depends where you live, which company you work for and many other things. Now what do I mean by that? If you're a British expat who is working in Iraq for a local company, even if that local company is one of the biggest in the country, it's very unlikely that the lender is going to lend to you because they simply can't get the due diligence. They can't very easily verify how much you're earning, how secure it is, and so on. Now, if you're a British expat who's working for KPMG and you've been sent from the London office to the Singapore office or the Dubai office, it's very likely a lender is going to lend to you, at least those that are in the expat market. So in general, the more advanced and mainstream the expat location, the more likely it is a lender will lend to you because they can verify the information more clearly. In comparison, if you're in a place like, I don't know, Burma or Myanmar, whatever you want to call it, or even a place in South America, the lenders are more likely to at least ask you to go through a few more hoops. Some have been known to say, well, we're only going to allow you to verify this document about your income in the British Embassy or consulate or whatever. They're more restrictive. And when it comes to something like Iran, Iraq, Venezuela, or any country that's under US sanctions, it's almost impossible. Having said that, though, it also depends on many things. If you're working for an embassy, an international school, multinational company, you are more likely to get accepted than if you're, a self-employed person who's working in an emerging market. The basic process, though, is the same as back home. You just might have to have a few more checks and go through a few more hoops and in some cases, get the documents translated because back home in the UK or Canada or wherever you are, of course, all the documents will be in English, whereas overseas, that's not always the case. Now, the final question is, well, should you actually get a mortgage in the first place? Now, that depends on so many things because there's expats from more than 180 countries. I would say, of course, it depends why you're getting a mortgage. It is a big hassle to get a mortgage these days as an expat. And in addition to that, a lot of the tax benefits have been closed. So, for example, 6 or 7 years ago, it was possible for a UK non-resident to pay 0% UK capital gains tax, whereas these days, buying UK properties become much more tax inefficient for non-residents. So, in general, it depends why you want to buy the property. But I would say be careful and also remember, compared to doing something like just holding illiquid investments, it's actually a lot more hassle and it's also not always less risk-free. In other words, if you're buying just one or two properties, that in many ways is much more risky than holding like a diversified global index like MSCI World or S&P 500 or whatever. So consider all these things and obviously make a decision. So it depends on each case, of course. And it also depends on things like the rental yields and other things in your country of origin. But just do the due diligence, obviously. And one thing I would say, though, is don't buy property just because everybody else buys property. A lot of people have a lot of peer pressure when it comes to this. And like, oh, wow, you're 35 and you still don't own property. Well, you know what? There's a lot of wealthy people in the world who don't own any property. I know one or two people who are the wealthiest people in my network and they just rent. And in some countries like Germany, it's a cultural norm to rent. So never feel you need to buy property for kind of cultural or kind of family reasons.